The past is, in many ways, the greatest indicator we have of how to live in the present. We look back on our lives and the lives of people we know, the events we have seen, the various outcomes, positive or negative, and we decide who we want to be. But the past can also be a very negative force in our lives. It can be a source of great anxiety. It can be a source of great regret, especially if there are situations or circumstances which didn't turn out the way you wanted them to. Sometimes you wish you could go back to the past and change something. Sometimes you wish you could change something about a certain moment, a conversation where you said something you shouldn't have said. Or sometimes you wish you could change something even deeper, like something about yourself. Sometimes, especially in an age like we live in now, where the culture is changing quickly and some social movements are, moving very quickly as well. I remember when I was in high school, it was quite normal. And I'm not saying this was okay. I'm just telling this is a fact about my high school where I grew up. It was quite normal to say something like, "Oh, that's so gay," as a kind of insult. Like that meant bad. Calling something gay was a word that we used in high school to mean bad. Now, I haven't been to a high school in 2021. I don't know if kids are still saying that, but I have a feeling they're not. And I have a feeling if kids said that today, they'd be in a lot of trouble. But 15 years ago, or whenever I was in high school, it was pretty normal. Yeah, it was. I mean, people said that in front of teachers. It wasn't even really thought of as, I don't know. It was just like saying shit. It was like just gay. It was just one of those words people threw around. And I probably threw it around too. In fact, I know I did. I know I used that expression, "that's so gay," at points in my life. And that's one of many things that I'm ashamed of looking back. I could use the excuse of I was just going with the crowd and trying to do what other people were doing and trying to fit in as an awkward teenager, but that doesn't absolve you of full responsibility, right? You have the circumstance you were born into, but then you also have the ability to make decisions. And sometimes you look back and you're like, you can regret the decisions you made, and you can also regret the decisions you didn't make to stand up about something, or just not even to stand up, but just to realize I don't agree with what everyone else is doing. I don't need to do that. Easier said than done, though, isn't it? Especially when you're young and you're trying to find your way in life and you don't really know who you are yet. It can be very difficult to act, or even to know that it's possible to act. Sometimes you just grow up and you're just this is just the way it is. People just act this way, so I'm just going to do that. You don't even stop to reflect on the meaning of the words you use, or the things you do, or the things you say, and how that could impact other people. But then you get older and you realize sometimes oh, I was the bad one. I was the asshole in that situation. And not just the example I gave, but anything, with ex-girlfriends or boyfriends, or, teachers or parents, or even strangers on the street. For those of you who drive, do you ever, I don't know, do you ever cut someone off or accidentally run a red light or something? And you're so shocked, you're oh, damn, I don't know how I did that. That was really dangerous. I could have killed someone. Why did I do that? But you're gone. You don't even have a chance to apologize. There's nothing to do. You just go on with your life, and you kind of, well, what do? You hope that you don't make that same mistake again. And that's where the past can be very useful. It's uncomfortable to think about your own past, and it should be. That discomfort means that you have changed somehow. Sometimes people say they look back and they have no regrets on their life, and I understand that philosophy. I mean, that's probably a healthy way to live, but you need to feel something to change, to grow on your journey. And we are all growing constantly, right? Like when I look back on who I was at earlier stages of my life, it doesn't even feel like the same person. It feels like I'm looking back at, like a different human being. Do you guys feel that way sometimes when you think of your own self? And this becomes very obvious when you go far enough back. Like imagine when you're a baby, right? So you're a baby and you were just born, and all you know how to do is cry and pee in your diaper and you don't know anything. And then over time you learn how to talk. You learn lessons like you can't always have what you want. If there's a toy that you want, sometimes your mom's not going to give it to you, and then you need to learn what it's like to not get all your needs satisfied right away. And so, some people grow up and they never learn those lessons. Some people are just like that baby who's always crying whenever they can't get what they want. And those people are very difficult to deal with, but you probably know some people like that in your own lives. But the point is, your life is a journey. You are constantly developing from that person, that baby who knew nothing about anything, and then you're on a journey. You're learning. You're developing as a human being. And we think a lot about a child's development, but sometimes we forget that adults are developing too. Whether you are 25 or 30 or 40 or 50, you are developing. And you're on this life path. And by the time you get old and you're on your deathbed, hopefully you're going to be a much wiser person than you were at any of those different stages. Because that means you've lived a complete life. You've transformed. You should always be ready to transform. I think the day you stop learning and developing, that's the day you die. And in a very real sense, if you are not changing, what's the point of living? Look around you at the plants. Look at the trees. They're alive and they're growing. That's what life is about. If you lose the ability to grow, you're just waiting to die. And so this way of thinking, I believe, can be very useful for a couple of reasons. The first is that it allows you to realize that, we're all growing all the time, and that we can't be too judgmental and we can't have too many regrets about our past self based on our present self, because our past self didn't know what our present self knows. And we need to remember that about other people as well. This is what it can lead to. Once you accept that your own past is part of a greater journey, you can begin to understand that other people's past is part of a journey as well. And that, maybe that person who broke your heart 10 years ago, maybe he or she or they or whoever it was, maybe this person was just at a different stage of life, and maybe you were too. And maybe if you see this person on the street now, you don't need to hate each other. You can just look at each other and smile and be like, we shared a life together when we were different people, and now we don't. And that's okay. That's life. That's living. That's growing. That's evolving. That's the real benefit of the past. It can give you perspective on the present. It's almost like a swimming pool. You dive into the past, but you don't want to drown, right? You got to get out again. You can think about the past, but if you think too much, you just become that person who is living in the past. And there are some people who are living in the past. That movie, Napoleon Dynamite? Did you guys ever see that one? There's the character in the movie who, he used to be a football star, and he used to be able to throw the football. He was a quarterback on his high school team, and he always talks about that, even though he's a middle-aged man, and he just drinks beer on the couch and talks about his high school football games. That's someone living in the past. And if we're not careful, if we spend too much time obsessing about our mistakes or the other people who wronged us or the way things should have turned out, then we get stuck in the past. And that's where I agree with the idea of no regrets and not, just always looking forward, because the past will destroy your present if you allow it to. Especially with like traumatic events, like if you've been through a divorce or you've been sexually abused or, emotionally abused, any kind of traumatic event in your life, that past can destroy your present if you allow it to. But if you are able to look back and reflect and analyze it and realize that that person you used to be is not the person you are today, then you can move forward and be a new person when you choose to be. Easier said than done, right? Like, I'm not saying this is easy. I'm not saying like just snap your fingers and the past is gone. But it truly begins with self-reflection. You need to have the courage to go back into those shadowy places, go back into those parts of your mind or your history or anything that you maybe don't like to think about. But when you do think about them, it empowers you and it allows you to move forward. It allows you to learn from the past instead of just regretting or judging or ignoring the events that made you into who you are.